Okay.
If you want to come and sit in your in your balloon sofa, I assume that sofa has a story.
The sofa has a story. Hey, top of the morning. How you doing?
Yeah. Hey.
Thanks for coming over. I got a question for you.
Ask away.
Does anyone ever say you look like
Oh, shut up.
Tom Christensen?
No, my God, they never say that.
Really?
I thought you were going to pull that George Clooney prank on me. No, Tom Christensen, I'm very flattered about that. More flattered than the Clooney thing, actually.
Yeah,
Thank
I
you.
see you more as Tom Christensen, maybe just a
sweet of
little
you.
taller.
Good
It
of
must be
you.
that Viking skull thing. But George Clooney, tell me about that. Does this happen?
The thing is that I live a few minutes from his house at Lago di Como, and it happens that tourists think that I am he, and I'm not yanking your chain. They actually
way.
pointed at me and said, "Oh, George Clooney."
That's
and
the
then
guy from Ocean's 11 right there.
I can't bear to ruin their vacation, so I just say ciao, ciao.
What is your favorite George Clooney movie?
Dusk Till Dawn, actually,
Till Dawn.
Roberto Rodriguez, and a script by Quentin Tarantino, you know that?
Yeah, it's an early
The young
film.
George Clooney.
Yeah.
And then there's the one where he breaks out of jail and goes in the trunk with that gorgeous woman with the butt. I forgot her name.
Oh, there's always a woman in a Clooney movie.
Oh, that's a sweet one.
So people go looking for George Clooney and you just happen to be... Have you ever been in the same place at the same time?
No. I passed Brad Pitt there in front of the house, so I know that he goes there.
Yeah.
But the local community, they just love this story. I think it's their entire raison d'etre that they have George Clooney in this little village. So all the restaurateurs go, "Oh, he eats here all the time." But I've been there 5 years now. I never saw him, so I'm smelling a rat. Really.
Yeah. I'm reading the
I'm just waiting for
subtitles.
them to hire me to run around and impersonate him to keep the cooking.
This
going.
reminds me of a story I can relate to. My wife and I own an old house in Hollywood near the Hollywood Bowl. And it's a rock and roll Hollywood house. And there's a tour bus that goes by the house every day, maybe 10 times a day. And we hear it. We literally sit in the house and the tour bus guy will go, "Charlie Chaplin used to live there," or "the Rolling Stones used to live there," or "John Lennon was there." So this is Hollywood folklore that seems to have expanded its way to Italy, it seems.
But you know, there has to be like a brass plaque on the wall, otherwise it never happened.
Never happened.
It's like lap times. You prove it or you just bullshit.
That's right,
Yeah.
that's right.
There should be more brass plaques around.
Yeah, I mean, I'm all about old things, you know. It's like the new society's obviously a lot more transient, disposable. Nothing's really made to last. Everything's 15 seconds of fame on social media, right? And, you know, I think in
We
reality,
actually decided to have this little chat about that because we could go to the 277 car and talk about it, but you've already done that 1,000 times. And I mean, I can't even make anything remotely as good as what's already out there on YouTube. So tell me about this new TV thing you're working on.
well, I'm always having a lot of conversations. This is at the conversation point right here. So, you know, I'm doing a film with Goodyear on the IROC race series. That's the next thing that's coming out next week. I'm doing some clothing collabs. My background is clothing design. So the three things that I've sort of enjoyed doing in 40 years of being in LA are basically design related, whether it's rehabbing old buildings, old cars, or old clothing, old soul. So my background is selling secondhand clothing on the boardwalk in Venice. And by that, I mean old Levi's. I bought this building that we're sat in right now 25 years ago.
For a
LA,
penny.
this is an old building. It's 125 years old. I like working on old cars. So the common thread that runs through my body of work is one, design related, and two, sort of rehabbing old objects, whether it's buildings, cars, clothing. I like things that have got old soul, that are worn. I don't necessarily like shiny new things. I like things with that were used for the purpose that they were designed and made. Cars were built to be driven. Guitars were built to be played. Shoes were built to be walked in, you know, where you wear them out. I'm not one of those guys that keeps my Nikes in a box unworn. These were built to be worn. And as you can see, I'm wearing them out. My last name's Walker. I average over 12,000 steps a day. I'm living up to my surname. So I like sharing stories of old things. So, you know, I'm not interested in a car with 0 miles on. I'm interested in that guy, Irv Gordon, that's got a Volvo P1800 that's in the Guinness Book of World Records as the high mileage, the the world's highest mileage individually owned non-commercial car. It was a 1967.
How much? How many miles?
I'm going to tell you.
Yeah.
Irv Gordon, who sadly passed away probably 6 or 7 years ago, I met him on this street, and he was making a commercial for Volvo. And here's the answer to your question. At the time, Irv Gordon had 2.8 million miles on this Volvo P1800. Before he sadly passed away, he achieved over 3 million miles on that 1967 Volvo P1800. He was the only one that drove it. It had been, the engine had been rebuilt a couple of times. The car had been repainted a couple of times. And Volvo was smart enough to start tracking high mileage cars through dealership maintenance and warranty in the early 70s. At that point, Irv had done almost 1 million miles. He lived on the East Coast. He was a school teacher. He commuted, I think, 200 miles a day. And everyone knew him as Irv Gordon, the Volvo P1800. And Volvo was smart enough to realize, and this is the disconnect I feel that a lot of car manufacturers and people today are disconnected from. They're so driven by marketing and people creating and curating stories that they think people are going to resonate with. Irv Gordon's story just generated over time. It wasn't some savvy media campaign, but it became the greatest thing for Volvo in the sense of, here's one guy that's driven one of our cars over 3 million miles.
Wow.
Who can say that? This is not a
Very few.
cap. So that's a great example of why I like old things, because old things generally have stories, and I like hearing stories and listening to people's journey, because at the end of the day, life's a journey.
You and I share that, but do you see, because I see that in younger people search backwards to find, instead of having a modern super pixel electronic digital camera, they want like an analog Leica or a Hasselblad. I mean, I have my own passion for old instruments and watches, and I mean, you and I share the idea of old cars. Do you see that younger people have some sort of rebellion towards this whole iPad thing, that, you know, they want to go backwards and find some authenticity in old stuff?
I think that's happening now. I think people have gone through the past 10 years of growing up with this, everything's instant. You get out your iPhone, you take a photo, put it on Instagram.
Throw it out.
And it becomes disposable, right? Nothing's built to last. These memories are short and forgettable. I think people now are realizing that's a little bit shallow, and maybe they want more substance, and maybe they're sort of taking more time to reevaluate what life's experiences are really about. And I think that just comes with maturity, that people realize, hey, maybe, like, for example, I'm trying to get stuff off my phone. The least amount of stuff on my phone, the better it is. The less distractions, the more real, tangible memories are made by being out in the real world. My fear is people are losing the art of eye-to-eye verbal communication. People are like this all day long texting. And someone's going to send you a text and there's a smiley face on it. And you go, what does that really mean, right? Whereas I'm stood next to you having an eye-to-eye verbal conversation. I'm looking in your eyes. I go, okay, what's going on? What is he really thinking here, right? This is more meaningful than, you know, pages and pages of text messages that are, a lot can be lost in translation through digital communication. Verbal eye-to-eye, face-to-face communication over a coffee, going for a walk, walking the dog, going for a drive, walking around an art gallery. This is where inspiration really is. Like in the world we're in today, during COVID, which was a strange time, no one went into the office. Post-COVID, people were like, you know, we're not going back to the office. 5 years later, I think people are realizing, wow, those conversations in the office, around the water cooler, where you're bouncing ideas off people, this is how the magic happens, the spark of creativity.
You're doing a TV show, or preparing for it, or you're pitching it. How far are you with it? About this theme of collecting things, the joy of gathering authenticity.
I'm at the beginning stages. Yeah. You know, this is a project that my buddy Tamir Moscovici, this guy, who actually was the director of the film that put me on the map 12 years ago, 13 years ago, Urban Outlaw. So he's got a new concept called The Art of Collecting, and we're at the beginning stages of getting ready to pitch this to TV companies, or it could just be something we produce on our own and goes on YouTube. Time will tell. But he's sort of tapped into something interesting, is the art of collecting. Why do people collect? People collect everything. Dolls, stamps, action figures, shoes, cars, rock and roll stuff, whatever, right? Watches, jewelry, crystals. Like, why do people collect? What does it mean?
But you don't mention there the people who collect the high-performance hard disks because they're probably not there. Everything you mention is old stuff. I mean, is there romanticizing about the old stuff, you think?
I'm an old soul, so for me, yes. I don't like new shiny things. Some people do. Some people want to live in a white room, glass box, modern house, right? Which is great, but that's not necessarily my aesthetic. So for me, I'm an old soul. I go back to this character, Patina, DNA, a frequency, a vibe. Things that are new to me have a purpose, but they're more of an appliance, right? Like a fridge. You know, and sadly, a lot of cars have become appliances where they lack soul and they lack things that engage the senses. We only have 5 senses, right? I'm looking at you, I'm smelling you, I'm hearing you. You know, maybe I'll feel you later on. Who knows what's going on, right? But, you know, these are the tangible things that make, for me, experiences more memorable and more meaningful and more interesting, rather than here's a shiny new object, right? There's a lot of shiny new objects, but I'm not necessarily interested in them.
We've gotten used to every product in our surroundings to be produced with a very short life expectancy. And I mean, it's kind of a paradox that we whine about sustainability, but we produce everything to be thrown out the very next day. And I'm hoping that your program will pitch into that and you maybe find this drive in the next generation to find authenticity and honesty in products, because we just kind of gotten used to everything is just shit.
Yeah, I mean, this is what museums are for, right? But it's not just museums. These are objects that are stored in a space that you can go look at, right? Which is great. But for me, inspiration is all around. And for me, the best way to get inspired is to walk. My eyes are open. I'm always looking up. I'm looking around. You know, I'm seeing things that inspire me, whether it's color or texture or sound or smell or energy. You know, so it's all about getting out and experiencing life for me one step at a time. Not being inside on your phone. You know, it's easy to get sucked into scrolling through, checking stuff out, comparing yourself to each other. But I like to create, and you never know where creativity comes from. You know, for me, it's not like a light switch where you just turn it on and go, today I'm going to be creative, right? Like the car you sat next to, this car had sat behind you 3 feet away for almost 10 years, just silver and blue. And one day I put on literally 4 orange stripes by that B pillar, and then that led to what became my current art car project. And I'm doing it organically, analog, with paper and vinyl tape. I always say the idea is the most important thing, and the idea cannot be taught. How you interpret that idea and communicate it, whether it's AI or some sort of computer program, Photoshop, Illustrator, Adobe, whatever, right? Some people create by putting pencil on paper or paint on canvas or having ChatGPT tell them, hey, do this. I have the idea, but I don't have the technical know-how of learning how to operate a program. So visually, I just put tape on a car. That's it. It's pretty simple. And generally, if I'm in the flow, it goes very, very quickly. It just flows from one to the next. And then I'll stop. And then maybe a day or two later, add a little bit more color. So far with this car behind you, which is a pretty rare car, it's a 1980 Porsche 924 Carrera GT, known internally as a 937. Porsche made 406 of them. And Porsche only ever made them in black, silver, and red. Mine's now Minerva blue, slate gray, gold, silver, orange,
multicolored,
blue, multicolored. And I'm doing my interpretation of perhaps this United Colors of Benetton vibe in my head if they'd raced that car in the 80s. And so for me, I didn't plan to do that. It just happened organically. It was an organic experience at a certain time that started with 4 pieces of tape out of maybe boredom. And that was it. You know, certain things just form where I'll walk around. I'm always looking at topography and graphics and road signs and arrows on the road and graffiti and street art. And that comes back to this blender, which I throw together, and out comes what I'm known for of these sort of bold, color-blocked, mostly 60s, 70s, and 80s inspired liveries, which is a theme that goes not just through cars, but for example, this chair that I'm sat on. These were never actually produced in red, silver, and blue. But growing up as a kid, I watched a lot of American TV, mostly based around cars, whether it was Kojak, Starsky and Hutch, Dukes of Hazzard, Chips, Rockford Files. I listened to a lot of 80s heavy metal music, Guns N' Roses, Motley Crue, Poison, bands like this, Captain America, Evel Knievel, Americana. And I'm English, so red, white, and blue was sat on a Union Jack rug, right? So these things, for me, coming to America 40 years ago was like the land of opportunity. This is sort of part of my DNA. So back to my rambling here is, these were never produced by Herman Miller in red, silver, blue glitter, but it kind of fitted my aesthetic, and this chair was literally made for us at least 30 years ago. So I like old things.
Hey car friends, thank you for watching JP Group Club. This is our new YouTube channel. It's obviously sponsored by JP Group, and we're aiming to tickle you in all the right places with information and entertainment pertaining air-cooled cars from primarily Porsche and Volkswagen. Stay tuned, and we're gonna take you through production. We're gonna test products at the workshop. We're gonna take you to interesting places, drive fascinating cars, and meet relevant people. Help me get this show on the road. Press the subscribe button and like, and whatever you can, share it with your friends, and we're gonna make it fly. Thanks a lot for watching. What do you think about the tape? Is that like part of the process, and it will end up being painted like that? I mean, I know you're next door because you accidentally showed me you also work on a brand new car. Is that a secret? The Battista project?
I'm doing a project. I mean,
but it's also tape.
This will eventually be paint.
Okay.
The car you're talking about is a collaboration I'm doing with Automobilia Pininfarina. You know, the 95-year-old Italian design house, perhaps the world's most famous design house, famous for designing almost all of the iconic Ferraris and Lancias and Alfa Romeos, located in Torino, and I've been there. They approached me to do a collaboration on a one-of-one of their all-electric hypercar, the 2,000 horsepower Automobilia Battista.
Named after Monsieur Pininfarina. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah.
So for me, such an honor to collaborate with perhaps the world's #1 design house. Remember, I'm a guy that left school at 15 with 2 O-levels and can't actually operate a computer really well. But it comes back to the idea, right? The idea is the most important thing. So I've built up this body of work where now I'm collaborating with people like Pininfarina and Goodyear and possibly Levi's and who else, like, you know, Nike, Hot Wheels, Mobil 1, whoever it may be. I'm just about doing cool things with cool people.
Speaking of Torino and design, did you know that Pelle Pettersson, who designed the P1800, was 18 years old? He was an intern from Sweden at the Frua in Torino, and they just let him have a pen and a napkin, and then he drew up that car on his lunch break, and they were so enthralled that they put it into production, and it became there had never been a James Bond in Roger Moore's figure without that, because he was Il Santo driving that car, and I mean, that guy is... but did you know that he was, I think he was 17, maybe?
I didn't know that.
No, Pelle Pettersson, Swedish boy.
Like Swedish house mafia. I mean, we all like Sweden. We've all gone to IKEA, right? You know, we're all listening to ABBA.
Later, yeah.
You know, I once owned a Saab. That was the second car I ever owned, a Saab 900 SPG Turbo.
Where are you going car-wise? I mean, Porsche is in your DNA. I can tell you the first time I became aware of you, when you did your night ride, and the 277 car was first on YouTube, and I saw it, and I mean, I like hot rodding and anarchism within the cars. I'm not such a sticker for originality, but I thought, this guy put a 964 mirror on an F model. That's sacrilegious. Porsche is gonna hate him. But then I went to Technoclassica Essen. I think that must have been 10, 11 years ago.
Yeah, maybe.
And instead of, you know, shedding you, they pulled you in, and you were standing there signing caps. And for me, that was your commercial breakthrough. Do you see it like that? Was that your claim to fame in the commercial world? Well, they invited you in.
More importantly, this is why you're more Tom Christensen than George Clooney, right? Tom Christensen, you know, drives a lot of old cars. Thank you for the comments and kind words. That's very nice of you to say. I think you're referring to 2014 when I was at the Techno Classic show with Porsche Classic. I think what Porsche realized, all because of when this film came out, you got to remember, I've never owned a new car, let alone a new Porsche.
Good.
But I've probably owned over 100 old Porsches. The oldest one being a 1964 911, which was the first year of the 911. And I think when this film came out 13, 14 years ago, what Porsche realized, even though at the time I wasn't your typical Porsche-looking owner, and back then there probably was a signature
You're being modest.
Porsche owner, you know, generally a wealthy, successful, older white gentleman, right? Doctor, lawyer, investment banker, finance bro. I wasn't that guy. But I think Porsche realized, even though maybe I didn't fit that stereotypical DNA, there's a Porsche for everyone. And they realized, more importantly, I believe, I had something that can't be manufactured and put in a container as a product and marketed and sold. And that simple passion. I fell in love with Porsche when I was 10 years old, back in 1977. You know, I'm now 58 years old. So I've been in love with this brand for almost 50 years. That's not changing. You know, I've owned air-cooled, water-cooled, front engine, mid-engine, rear engine, air and water-cooled Porsches. I've yet to own an electric one, but I've driven them. So I've had a variety of cars and experiences, and I love modifying old Porsches. They're relatively simple to modify. From 1964 all the way up to, you know, I guess the first water-cooled 996, you know, 30 years later. Things are interchangeable up to that point. And that was what's great about vintage Porsches. They're easy to modify. And if you've got a need for speed, you know, you can make them stop shorter with bigger brakes. You can obviously make them go faster with a bigger engine, and you can make them handle better. You can do all of that. And my background was sort of streetable, sport purpose, track-related cars. I did a lot of track days from 2002 to 2008 at the Porsche Owners Club, taking what I would call my spirited street driving to the track. Became a better driver, drove tracks such as Laguna Seca, Thunder Hill, Willow Springs, Vegas, Phoenix, Las Vegas Motor Speedway, California Motor Speedway. And then over time, I built this reputation for modifying these cars into what would become known as, you know, sport purpose, streetable track cars. And people have been modifying Porsches since day one. I'm not doing anything new.
No.
You know, James Dean modified his Porsche, right, in the 50s. So this is nothing new. I was just coming at it from a slightly different way where I don't need to see another Martini livery, Golf livery, Jägermeister livery. I love all those colors, and what I will do is throw them together, and that's what's behind you on that car. All those colors are merged into one, but you'd never know it because it doesn't say Golf or Martini, but they're there if you look closely. So it's back to taking that inspiration and throwing it in a blender and adding my DNA to it, everything I described earlier on, elements of Americana and Britishism and whatever it may be. So when Porsche approached me after the film came out, it was great. You know, it was just great to be on that journey. The long answer to your question, where am I at now? I'm still a Porsche guy, but I'm in my vintage Rolls-Royce era.
I noticed.
Rolls-Royces from the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
Doesn't get more authentic than that.
No, I mean, if you're British or you want to be British, at some point you aspire to owning a Rolls-Royce, but specifically for me, a vintage Rolls-Royce. No one will ever look at you like you're a douchebag in a vintage Rolls-Royce. No. And I've driven all of the new Rolls-Royces up to a Spectre, and I like them, but I'm not going to own a new one. Vintage Rolls-Royces, mostly shadows from the 70s, are so affordable, it's unbelievable. You can buy them for the price of buying a Porsche used Boxster. But the quality and craftsmanship of what you get with Connolly leather and wood veneer and the quality of craftsmanship is unrivaled for that price point. And cars from the 70s are straightforward. 3-speed automatic, V8 engine. The most complicated thing really, or things that go wrong, will be electronics or hydraulics. But there's no computers involved in it. And they're not trendy. This is what I love about it. There's not a bunch of hipsters drinking Kool-Aid driving around in Rolls-Royces. And it's a conversation starter. Every time you pull it up as crosswalk or as traffic light, someone will look at it and go, what year, and give you the thumbs up. And ironically, that's how it used to be with Porsches. But it's not so much that way anymore, because people are concerned about, can't put miles on my new whatever, right? Because I don't want to devalue it. You said it earlier on. They're saving it for the next guy. These things are built to be driven. So the long answer to your question is, we're in our vintage Rolls-Royce phase right now. But I'm also doing a project with TWR, Tom Wilkinson Shaw Racing, where we took the iconic, Tom Wilkinson Shaw Racing, for those that don't know, is a British heritage motorsports engineering firm formed by Tom Wilkinson Shaw in the early 80s. He was British touring car champion, he won at Bathurst, but what really put him on the map was he developed the car that Jag won outright at Le Mans in 1988, the Silk Cut TWR Jag. Also helped develop the XJR, the XJ15.
We have a Dane in that, you remember that?
Yeah, I do. So yeah, we know that story. Tom unfortunately passed away maybe 20 years ago, and his son Fergus has rebooted, rebranded the company, And over the past 3 years, I've been fortunate enough to be a design consultant on what is known as the TWR Supercat, which in essence is a 660 horsepower V12 supercharged 6-speed manual Jag XJS. But don't call it a Jag, it's a TWR. So it's back to doing cool projects with cool people based around whether it's a Pininfarina or TWR or Porsche or Vintage Rolls-Royce. For the most part, old is gold.
We could talk about this until the sun went down, but we have to finish it off somewhere. I'd like to reach out and hear your take on the future, because there's like, I mean, I personally have my own little mission looking for hope. For many years, it's been like this. The song was that the old cars are going to die with the old mechanics. But the more I look, the more I see young guys working the English wheel and hammering and drawing the tin and painting with the old colors. And in Italy, there's a huge industry bringing back the old Ferraris to a very, very high standards. And all the workshops I come, it's young people. I mean, do you share that hope? Is it just going to go on, this train?
I think the train is going to keep rolling as long as there's a Danish wheel and an English wheel, and as long as we can get oil and gasoline.
Good point.
I think people will realize these things are not going to be obsolete dinosaurs. One of my favorite stories is, to me, perhaps the world's greatest car enthusiast and collector, Mr. Jay Leno. And Jay has everything from steam cars to modern hypercars, but the majority of what he's got is vintage. And I will leave our conversation for now on this note. When I first went on the Jay Leno Garage Show in 2012 after Urban Outlaw came out and Jay drove 277, Jay said to me, "Have you ever been in a steam car?" And of course I hadn't. Who has, right?
Who has?
Who's been in a steam car?
Yeah.
Well, Jay's got half a dozen of them.
I know.
He goes, "Let's go for a ride in this 1904 Stanley steamer." So it was like putting on the kettle. I'm English, the kettle's always on, you boil the water, have a cup of tea. But in a steam car from 1904, it takes maybe 20 minutes for pressure to build up in the boiler to make steam to propel the wheels. Now, we waited the 20 minutes. Jay pulled the steam car out of the garage and it sprung a leak. But being Jay Leno, he didn't just have one steam car, he's got at least 6.
There's a plan B.
The plan B, we fired up the kettle one more time, waited for that car to make steam, and Jay took me for a drive around Burbank, sat next to him in a 1904-05 Stanley steam car. So if people have figured out how to keep steam cars running, you talk about obsolete, antiquated technology, there's a lot of hope.
There's a lot of hope there.
There's a lot of hope for what we refer to as internal combustion engines. And these things are not going away. Someone will finally figure out how to make a cleaner synthetic fuel, right? And keep these cars running. So let's put the pedal to the metal and get out and drive.
Get out and drive. That'll be our final word. Thank you, Magnus. I look forward to seeing your TV show, and let's get some authenticity rolling.
Well, let's go do that other thing we're talking about, you know. Where's George Clooney? We got to go find him, right?
Yeah, we gotta go find George.